We're going to start soon. We're just waiting for the final few registrants to join, but I'll give you some information in the meantime. So every Wednesday, we're at the moment organizing webinars, our webinar Wednesdays. So as you can see on the presentation, we have the upcoming webinar, which is the proposal templates and budgets. I suggest and recommend that you join us on the day, so you can get more insight into proposal submission. Take the opportunity to remind you about our social media pages. So please do follow us. We do have the Facebook page, Horizon 2020 Malta, and also we have a Twitter profile, which is H2020 Malta. And of course, if you are not registered to the MCST website, I do suggest you register and make sure to subscribe to the relevant Horizon 2020 areas to receive our newsletters. I'll just wait one more minute and we'll start, okay? Hello and good morning, everyone. For anyone that just joined or might be seeing the recording of this session, I take the opportunity to remind you about our webinar Wednesdays. Our next webinar will be on the 27th of May regarding proposal templates and the budgets of proposals. I remind you also to follow our social media pages. We have the Facebook page, Horizon 2020 Malta, and our Twitter account, which is H2020 Malta. Just some housekeeping rules for this webinar. Please keep your mics muted unless I advise you to open the mic. Note that the session is recording, so if any content that is shown will be shared and is open to everyone. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box and I will address your questions at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'll kick off the content of today. So this webinar is about the energy calls, specifically the energy efficiency calls, which were just issued. There's actually a big number of opportunities still available under Horizon 2020, under the energy team. There's about 23 open calls at the moment, addressing all types of energy calls. So as you can see here, there are a wide variety of actions, both research innovation and innovation actions, and even some other actions. We won't be discussing these calls shown on this slide today. We will actually be addressing these calls as indicated by the red box today, which are the energy efficiency calls. So we have, I think, 10 in total, which we'll be covering. As you can see, for the most part, they are coordination and support actions with a deadline on the 10th of September 2020. Most have opened earlier this month and some others in early March. I also take the opportunity to remind you that there are calls which I think are very interesting for Malta. So although we're not covering the other calls, please do have a look at them after the webinar. So Horizon 2020 Energy Efficiency Call for Proposals. As I said, it was launched earlier this month with a total of 64 million budget with a deadline on 10 September 2020. All of the calls are single stage, so they're evaluated at one go. And as indicated earlier, there are two types of actions being funded. The innovation actions, basically demonstrating or pilot to validate technical and economic viability of new or improved technologies, product, process, service, or solutions in an operational or near to operational environment. So we're talking high TRL here, which means basically technology readiness level reaching the market. It's also addressing market replicability. As an example, support for the first application or deployment in the market of already demonstrated innovation. What's really important with regard to innovation actions is the eligibility criteria, being 3 independent legal entities from different member states or associated countries. That is the minimum criteria for eligibility in the innovation action calls. And the funding rate here is a maximum of 70% for private organizations. So except for non-profit legal entities, where as for the whole of Horizon, they always get the maximum 100%. But please also always check the precise definitions of each call. So going forward, as indicated earlier, most of the calls are coordination and support actions. So here they're addressing improvements of the market conditions and aiding market transformation. So standardization, fostering dialogue, and capacity building. The eligibility conditions here are very different from the innovation actions. So the minimum criteria is 1 legal entity from different member states or associated countries. Basically, what that means is you can go at it alone as one entity, not as an individual, but as an entity. However, I put a point here. Do note that collaboration may be favored for some topics and is required for some of the topics as indicated here. So E4, E1, 2, 4, 7, 9, 11, 14, and then the EC1, 2, and 5. So please make sure to read the call text really well and to always check the work program, specifically page 202 of the work program, where you have the details about the eligibility criteria. Under CSAs, the funding rate is 100%, so you get the maximum of it. So just to link up with what I was saying, so if it's a CSA, as for example, the first one, if you apply for 1 million, you're going to be funded for 1 million euros. So looking at these calls here, we can see that the indicated budget, so the overall budget for the first call, which is B4E2, is 4 million euros, and each project being funded here will be in the range of 500,000 up to 1 million. So doing some simple mathematics here, that means at least a minimum of 4 projects will be funded. Sorry, a maximum of 4 projects will be funded. So be aware of that you should target, let's say, the 1 million mark. Do not try to stay within it and not exceed it. With regards to B4E3, it's an innovation action call. with an indicated budget of between 3 million and 4 million euros. And as you can see, the overall budget is 8 million. So we can expect 2 projects to be funded or 2 proposals to be evaluated positively. The next call, which is B4E4, has a budget of 1 million to 2 million. Again, it's a CSA, so 100% funding. And we have an overall 6 million euro budget indicated here. So around 3 to 4 projects will be funded under this. Something a bit different in the next calls, which are the B4E11 and B4E13, which are about smart financing. They have a shared overall budget of 16 million. So between both calls, 11 and 13. The budget indicated for each proposal is between 1 million and 1.5 million. Moving on to the other smart finance call, which is B4E12. Again, it's a CSA with an overall budget of 3 million and maximum, not maximum, but are in the range of proposals from 500,000 to 1.5 million euros. And last but not least, the B4E14 call, which is again a CSA, overall 6 million budget, so 3 projects with proposals in the range of 1 million to 2 million euros. So let's start discussing the topics in a bit more specificity. Unfortunately, we are a bit time constrained. We only have an hour for this webinar. So I took the time on each slide to give you the links for the policy context. As you can see, I'll try to use the pointer here. So I'm talking about this section here, this column basically, table, sorry, not column. You will find for each call topic the policy context. So if you intend to apply for any of the calls, make sure to watch these videos because this is the commission speaker giving further insights. So I have 3 links for each call, basically showing questions and answers at the physical info day that was held last year. And then in the middle, you'll find the specific info day video for the call. So make sure to go through these videos if you intend to apply for the call. Sorry about that. Going back to this specific call, so B4E2 is about buildings, or more specifically, building decarbonization. This call is aimed at the building sector, not just the construction sector. So make sure to consider how the building sector comes into play, not only the construction sector. And we're talking about upscaling professionals in the whole value chain. So it's not about skill development activities and also not about developing qualifications and training skills for professionals. It's about boosting the demand of these professionals. Within the call, you can target all education levels. But basically the European Qualification Framework 128. You can address one or several, but you have to justify why you're addressing that specific level. You can target all professions involved in the building value chain, and that means everyone from the architect to the simple building construction worker who is assisting, or basically a manual laborer. So all levels are being addressed in this call. Let's stop here with this call and move on to the next one. So I can turn this off again. Okay. So the next call is B4E3, upgrading smartness of existing buildings through innovation for legacy equipment. This is the only innovation action call open at the moment. Again, you have the videos, so please make sure to have a look at them. And please note this is a follow-up topic from previous years, so please do your homework and do the background check on previously funded projects and see where they are with regards to the project developments and what they have developed, and make sure to build on that. So this call is about buildings and the smartness of buildings. Of course, it targets primary energy savings from buildings, and it will have it should, at the end of the project, trigger investments. So both during and after, but it's very important that during the project's undertaking, you start triggering the investments. Also important to note here is that you are being evaluated, not evaluated, but considering the consumer satisfaction achieved through the solution. So basically what that means is that the consumer has to be happy with the solution you're providing and is comfortable with it as well. Here the call is speaking about smartness of upgrades of the actual existing buildings, of course with potential of replication. It must unlock a broad range of equipment and appliances, also about connecting devices to energy management systems and demand response, and of course energy and cost savings that go beyond the energy required by the IT equipment used in the solution. So whatever smartness you are going to utilize, you need to factor in the energy used and cater for it. And of course, the greenhouse gas reductions for heating when applicable, and from an increased renewable use. And you have to consider air pollution reduction, specifically indoor air pollution reduction, when you are addressing this call. Moving on to our next topic, which is B4E4 2020. Call title is Next Generation of Energy Performance Assessment and Certification. This call again is about buildings and building decarbonization. So the call is about implementing trust in the market and increasing investments in energy and efficiency in buildings. It has to consider holistic assessment of buildings. The complementary dimensions need to be considered here in this specific call. And you should take on board past lessons learned and innovative approaches developed through past projects that were dealing with EPCs, and take into account the latest developments in member states. So if you're a participant from Malta, you have to make sure you know what's going on with regards to EPC. So do get in touch with, I believe it's EWA, the Energy Water Agency that takes care of EPCs in Malta, and also the Malta Resource Authority, because I think they are very linked together. One is the authority, and I think the other is the implementer here. Moving on, although there was another call in 2018, it was again a coordination and support action. Although this call is very similar, there are a number of differences between the two. So make sure to read the call text, but make sure also to take on board the lessons learned from such projects. So a good idea is to see who was coordinating those projects, get in touch with the coordinator, and see if they can share any experiences with you. Again, there are the videos. Make sure to have a quick look. It's important that you understand the policy context to address such calls. The next topic is B4E11 2020, call titled Financing for Energy Efficiency Investments, Smart Finance for Smart Buildings. So we're talking about innovative financing here. So it's of course speaking about the, not speaking, but you have to address the EU added value, not just um, applying it in one context, but you need to consider EU-wide replication when you're thinking about your proposal idea. Um, one important thing is to factor in that the call overall budget is shared with the other call I mentioned earlier, which is the B4E13 topic. So make sure you consider how this might impact your chances of success. So do factor that in when you're playing around with your budget preparation. This call has a very wide scope, which is addressing within the policy framework of smart financing initiatives, policy initiatives, and through the Sustainable Energy Investment Forum. Make sure to have a look at the video because there's more content about this wider scope, and there's more detail, and you can find also the associated links to past projects here. So this call is split into two scopes. You have Scope A, mainstreaming energy efficiency finance, and Scope B is about innovative financing schemes for energy efficiency investment. You can focus on one element, so don't address all the bullet points of the scope. So if you're addressing Scope A, there are going to be a number of bullet points, and you do not need to focus on all of them. I would suggest you just pick one and target it really well in all aspects of it. The impact for this call is depending on the scope addressed, so make sure if whatever bullet you are going to pick, that you in line with that, consider how you're going to quantify your indicators and targets whenever possible with regards to impact. The next call is B4E13 2020. So this is the PDA, which is the Aggregating Project Development Assistance. Again, this is under innovative financing. The PDA basically is a great tool for unlocking local and regional level energy savings investments for measures in buildings and transport sector infrastructure. So the aim here for the PDA is to trigger more investments in projects in energy efficiency and sustainable energy. So basically, we're upscaling investments, and you have to make sure that you're bundling or aggregating small-sized projects, and you should basically be having a total portfolio of around 7.5 million or upwards for this specific call. So you need to bundle a number of basically project ideas and present them within the context of your proposal. So what we're aiming under this call, under the PDA, basically targets several sectors, such as the existing public and private buildings. You can consider those. The industry, of course, and services, urban transportation, so e-mobility, such as, I don't know, charging stations for electric vehicles and so forth, and any other existing infrastructures, such as street lighting, water or wastewater, etc., with regards to infrastructures. So basically, the whole scope of the PDA is investments being launched before the end of the action. So you need to have a good business plan, or more of a plan, not a business plan, on your approach, because the investment has to take place. within the lifetime of the project. And it's, as you can see here, I've put a mention, I'll indicate it with the pointer. Oops. With, which is very important is the leveraging effect here. Basically, what the 1 to 15 leverage factor means is whatever the European Commission is funding, so the actual grant money, if you get 1 million euros, basically at the end of the project, it has to result in triggering around 50 million euros in an energy-related investments. So you have to consider this from the outset. What's really interesting here about this call is proposals from one single entity are eligible, so you can go at it alone from one country. So although you need to do some well thought out project planning, you can go at it alone. You don't need other countries or other entities involved with you for this specific PDA. But do factor in that you need to think about replicability in other countries. And if I recall correctly, the European Commission will assist with regards to this, the replicating activities. Moving on to the next call. E4E12 2020 is about the national roundtables to implement the Smart Finance for Smart Buildings initiative. Again, it's under innovative financing. So here we're talking about stimulating dialogue between energy efficiency finance stakeholders at national level. It's very important that the proposal is talking about this, how to bring in the different stakeholders. Basically, you have to implement a platform for discussion and co-creation of solutions, and of course, only gather the relevant stakeholders. So you wouldn't bring on board, let's say, a partner or an association just because you think they are relevant. They need to have relevance with regards to the overall project outcome. So what should roundtables do? They should develop strategies, roadmaps, and action plans for supporting national policy implementation. You have to also consider the European ones, and they should also propose improvements for the policy implementation, and also follow through with the implementation of the proposed actions. As with any other call, we always recommend that you build on the activities of other projects, and specifically for this one, you should also build on the activities of the Sustainable Energy Investment Forums. Very important. This is very important for this call. Please do have a look at the videos I have listed here, which give you more insights about the forums. Again, here you can go at it alone. So proposals from one single entity are eligible. Again, we recommend that you always try to bring on board other entities, especially for market replicability, and it's always looked positively on by the evaluators. The next call is B4E14 2020. This is about the the call title is enabling next generation of smart energy services, valorizing energy efficiency and flexibility at demand side. Again, this is a coordination and support action. And here the call is about consumer services. So this call is specifically about business models and energy. So it's not just energy. You have to talk about how big the approach is about innovative business models. So it has a different scope from previous years because it's a repeat call. So the make sure to read the call text very well. I've put a list here of the specific focus, but it's important that you make sure that you are addressing this year's scope. So this year, the specific focus is about revenue streams for flexibility and for energy efficiency of distributed generation. I'll get into that in a moment. It's also about um, new innovative monitoring verifications used within the actions, and you have to consider very well the contractual aspects that go into your business models, and you have to consider quite well how the smartness of energy services come into play. So the immediate um, energy services that come into play have to be considered, and you have to also consider the non-immediate energy efficiency services. So basically, as stated in the point there, you have to address smart energy services, and apart from that, you have to address uh, energy efficiency. Uh, so they must be included and bundled with other energy services. The non-energy services, and I have a small typo there, that's data analytical tools. So we're talking about the distribution of energy and how that comes into play with smart energy services, how to factor in services such as heating and cooling, how to consider e-mobility, how the contractual arrangements will fit into the proposed actions, and of course, you have to always think about the energy efficiency side of, of the services. So moving on to our next batch of calls, which are open under the energy efficiency, which are under the Smart Clean Energy for Consumers as a team. So as you can see, they're all coordination and support actions. And please note that EC1 and EC2, they are sharing the overall budget, 12 million. So you can expect around 6 to 8 projects being funded between the calls. Please factor that into your budget planning and your proposal to make sure that what you're proposing makes your chances of success greater. So let's go into more detail. EC1 2020, the title of this call is the role of consumers in changing the market through informed decisions and collective actions. Again, this is under the consumer and services team. It's open to concepts of energy communities. One should address the national regulatory barriers. So you have to factor in, if you're applying from Malta, basically, you have to factor in the Maltese regulatory barriers. You should go beyond the business as usual. So you need to think outside the box a bit for this call. And of course, you need to set up or support the energy communities. A bit more detail about this. So if you're setting up energy communities, this means you're tackling a region or a country where the energy communities are non-existing, so it takes a bit of work to do. So do plan for that before you start writing the proposal, how you're going to address that. Thus, I suggest and recommend that you build on existing initiatives or projects. So again, reach out to the coordinators of both ongoing projects under this team and previously funded and completed projects. I recommend the latter because they can, apart from sharing their success, the lessons learned, they can contribute to a successful proposal, and they might come on board with you to such project. Our, sorry, not our, but the next call is the EC2 2020 about mitigating household energy poverty. Again, this is about consumers and services. Specifically, this call focuses on energy poor households. Um, so you need to see how you're gonna involve such um, uh, teamed, not teamed, but clusters or groups of people. More specifically, not the people, but the poor households. It's quite a challenging task to do and to address. So again, start thinking about it immediately before um, writing down your ideas. Make sure you evaluate well how the involvement of poor households is coming into play in your project proposal. Um, you shouldn't replicate previous actions. You should build on them. Again, you have to basically do a bit of analysis of what has taken place across Europe, and you should um, take take the lessons learned and go forward with them. Um, as I just mentioned, you need to consider the European context, and you need to bring the European added value in your proposed actions, and you need to demonstrate how you intend to identify and have access to uh, participating energy poor households. So if you're taking, let's say, um, this type of action, you need to really work out your plan, how you're going to approach this, and it should come clearly out within the outset of your proposal. Um, the impact criteria here is about sustainable, uh, sorry, not sustainable, but substantiating the foreseen energy savings. You have to present a clear baseline and benchmark any assumptions. So you have to basically set the targets, and you have to demonstrate a clear link to the proposed activities. It's quite a challenging call, so you need to understand the policy context of this, and you need to make sure that you do your background and homework about the existing projects and actions taking place. I think this might be our last topic, which is EC5 2020, supporting public authorities in driving the energy transition. So basically, this call is targeting public authorities. It does not mean that you um, have to have them on board, the public authorities, but it would be nice if they are. And if they are not, you should have basically um, their support in a letter, which you should attach to your proposal, basically recommending um, your project's approach. So basically, this call is split in two scopes. You have scope A and scope B. You can address one or the other. Scope A is regarding supporting the local and regional authorities, while scope B is about supporting member states, so the national level. Scope A is split into 4 points. So for criteria, just aim at one of them. You don't need to target them all. There's no added benefit to cover more than 1 point. So stick to one and make sure that you tackle it from every angle possible. More detail about Scope B. It's about supporting the Energy Efficiency Directive implementation, so the new one basically. There is not an exhaustive area of work, so you can be as as innovative and creative as you want. Again, it depends on what actions you want to do. With regards to impact for the specific cause, it depends on the scope you're addressing, since there are a number of them and you can just address one. And of course, you have to use quantified indicators and targets wherever possible. Again, you have to basically make sure that how you're approaching your targets is quantifiable. That brings me, I think, to a close about the topics, but I'll give you some advice about about proposals. Um, you need to factor in a lot of things when you're basically starting with your concept, but immediately start thinking about the structure of the proposal. So you have the section 1 and 3 about technical annexes, where you basically describe your excellence, impact, and implementation of your project. Section 4 and 5 are about the description of the consortium. So the people involved, you should um, basically list all all the associated partners. Um, and under this section as well, there is the ethics part. The other two indicated here, which are the online forms, basically administrative data, and the other one is the optional annexes. They are not always relevant. It depends on the call. So make sure to have a look at the templates here so you understand what you need to do from the outset. A bit about the eligibility check. Um, so basically, we're speaking here about uh, at the end of your uh, proposal submission, before you submit, make sure you complete the full proposal, that you didn't leave anything out. If there's a page limit, how many pages do you have? Um, I think it's 80 for most of these calls, so make sure to stay within them. Less is better in this case, but make sure to address every aspect that is being targeted in the call text. Make sure that the partners involved in the consortium have a role, and they should be having um, clearly defined actions in the project. So if, for example, you need, let's say, an association, they don't necessarily have to be partners in the project, but you can mention them as being involved, let's say, in a board of overseers or something like that, and along those lines, so as to engage all stakeholders. So again, make sure that the construction is well built. Make sure that you target your communication and dissemination plan and include it in your proposal. And of course, very important here, the exploitation strategy. So what do you do with the results, and what happens with them? Since we're a bit tight with time and I want to leave some time for questions, I'll move on. I won't spend too much time on this. Um, we speak about excellence, impact, and implementation in several of our webinars, so please make sure to have a look at the recordings, which are available on the MCST website. I think they are under the news section. So please make sure to check out the recordings. I'll just say a few things which are important for the energy efficiency cause, which is about the impact. So they should be logical conclusions of your activities. So as the diagram here shows, identify the needs from the outset of your planning of the proposal. So they need to basically link up with the project objectives. Then you need to import the resources and actions for them to be implemented. And of course, during the carrying out of the actions, you will achieve the outputs, products or services, and you will have both short-term and long-term impact. So the short-term impact should make it within the timeline of your projects, and the long-term impacts considered should be following the end of the project. So we need to consider those. Moving on, I took the time to provide a lot of links. So following this meeting sometime this afternoon or in the coming days, you'll receive both the presentation and the recording. I'll do my best to provide you the presentation by the end of the day for the registered participants of this webinar. So you can immediately start doing your homework and start tackling and finding more information about the specific calls. These are very important links that I feel you need to have a look at, which are of course, the Energy Work Program of 2018-2020. It basically sets out the context of the call. So you need to understand where the call background is coming from, especially for the financing ones, for the financing, smart financing calls. Make sure to have a look at the Virtual Info Day 2020. I put the link of each call within the call, not call, sorry, the slide of the specific call details in this presentation. So please do have a look at them. An important resource is the EASME website, portal, basically. Have a look at it. There's the Horizon Info Day, the physical info day that took place in 2019. It gives a lot of information about past projects, so if you have the time, look into it. It's very important to check out the FAQs. This link gives you the FAQs generally for all the energy efficiency calls, but please make sure to check the FAQs on the page for each topic. They just scroll down on the topic page and you'll find them there. They are specifically for that topic. I provided here the EASME Energy Team contact. So if you click on this link, I'll show you which link. This link here. That basically gives you the direct email contacts of the EASME team at the European Commission. So if you have any further questions that I myself or my other NCPs at MCST cannot help you with, you can directly go to them. But we always suggest that you reach out to us first, and we'll do our best to address any of your questions. But it is there, and you can utilize it as well, and you can contact them. Of course, there are the guides for proposal submission and the evaluation. Have a look at them, very important. And of course, the proposal templates. They're unique for the CSA, and the innovation action and research innovation action are different templates. So make sure to have a look at them. And also have a look at the self-evaluation form. Once you draft your proposal and you're very happy with it, you should share it with a non-biased colleague that you trust. Make sure he reads the form and basically does an evaluation instead of the commission, so you get some insight before you actually hit the proposal submission. It's good to have another set of eyes reviewing your documents. So I do suggest this. And oops, sorry. You can also share your proposals with the Maltese NCP team if you're a Maltese legal entity or registrant based in Malta, and we'll happily give you some tips if you share the proposal with us. And of course, it's kept confidential. Where do you go after this webinar? Basically, the next opportunity to learn more is actually this week on the 22nd of May. You have, sorry, not you have, but the UK NCP is organizing this. I do recommend that you join this webinar if you're interested in any of these energy efficiency topics. There's also a networking opportunity at this webinar. um, where you can send basically a 2-minute pitch of your project idea or your organization to network. Um, there will be dedicated one-to-one meetings, apart from more information and specificities of the call topics. So I'll do my best to share with you the presentation. So you have the links here for the event, the agenda, and the registration. It's open to all countries, so please make sure to have a look at this webinar on Friday, 22nd of May, this week, basically. The links are elective, so you can immediately do the registration. If you're a Maltese uh, individual or entity, please reach out to me if you intend to participate. So I'll make sure to assist you at this webinar and following the webinar as well. A bit about us. How can we help? The Maltese MCP system is based with the Malta Council for Science and Technology, basically Horizon 2020 team. Our role is to spread awareness, advise clients, and of course provide you customized support. If you haven't been in contact with us, I do recommend that you reach out to us and we'll give you more insights. We've prepared specific videos if you're not very well versed about Horizon 2020. These videos basically address each Horizon 2020 pillar and also the horizontal ones. They give you success stories coming from Malta. So in each one, I believe there's an interview with a successful Maltese participant. So don't give up. There's a lot of success stories coming from Malta, and we are here to help you and assist you all throughout the process. So both before you start the project, during the project, and I said both before, but there's actually we also assist you following the project. So we support you through the whole life cycle of the implementation. So this is the team. I'll leave this here for a few seconds while I have a look at the chat, see if there are any questions. I believe there are some questions, so I'll address them in a moment. You will have the contact details in the presentation. Feel free to reach out to any one of us. We have a no wrong door policy, so anyone you contact will help you and assist you and then direct you for more specificities within the limits of colleagues. So again, thank you for your attention, and I hope the presentation shared and gave you insights into the call topics. So now I'll address your questions. Let's see. So we have a question from Brian Atapardi and is asking, can you add deadlines on each if possible? I believe the deadlines are indicated, yes. So all the calls, you have the deadlines set out here. Let me show you the pointer. So the deadline is shown here. So if you see a dot, that means it's applicable to all the calls as indicated. So we'll go to the next set of calls, the energy efficiency calls. The deadline for all of them is the 10th September. So I have that's very clear. So it's basically one deadline for the energy efficiency cable calls, which is 10th September at 5 p.m. Brussels time. Very important if you have partners from across Europe that the time is 5 p.m. Brussels time, not any other time, the Brussels time. Let's see if we have any further questions. Brian again is asking if the slides will be shared. Yes, I will do my best to share them by the end of the day. I believe there are no more questions. If anyone wants to take the floor with a question, um, please feel free to do so, and you can do that now. Or you can use the chat for any questions you have. Since there are no questions, so if there are no questions, I will ask my colleagues to confirm that there are no questions because it's quite hard to see from the presenter view. Mark, maybe you can assist me?
Till now, there are no questions, George.
Okay. So if there are no questions, I thank you all for following and participating in this webinar. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to get in touch with me or any of my colleagues, and I'll be happy to assist you. So we'll end the webinar here then. Thank you very much.